Hey guys, welcome back to part 2 of my eyeshadow collection video. Part 1 was half of my high-end palettes, and then this is going to be the second half. So if you missed part 1, I'm going to go ahead and just pop the playlist up here on top of the screen, and you can just click on that and watch them all the way through from the beginning. But if you already saw part 1, let's go ahead and get into part 2. Alright, so first we're going to be talking about my Huda Beauty collection. I have 1 palette from Pretty Vulgar and then 3 from Nars. So in the first video you saw large collections of the same brand, and now they're going to start getting a little bit more mixed because these are the drawers that I have where I don't have a huge amount of palettes from one brand, so they're kind of all mixed together. So first up, let's just start with this Pretty Vulgar palette. This is the Nightingale, and this one I actually haven't even tried yet. I got this in a BoxyCharm a couple of months ago. I really love the color story in here just because it's those cool tones that I tend to gravitate towards. So I definitely have plans to put this aside and test it out. I had just stuck it in a drawer when I was cleaning and completely forgot about it. So definitely setting that aside to try out. Next up, we have the Nars Wanted palette. I know this isn't available at Sephora anymore, but it may still be around on their website. This one was really pretty. I did love the formula a lot. You had some nice warmer tones in here for the most part, but it wasn't like overwhelmingly dark tones. There was a lot of nice lighter colors for my skin tone, so I really liked this one a lot. I loved this green color. It was like the best lid shade, and this one too was really beautiful. And then next up we have the Nars Loaded palette, and this one is probably my favorite of the 3 that I have. It's just a really pretty neutral palette. I don't believe this one's available anymore. It's a few years old now, but I just loved the colors in here. It kind of almost in a sense reminds me of the Natasha Denona Biba, just kind of like these muted colors and neutrals kind of mixed together. It has like some cooler tones mixed with warms. So this is a really great one that I also need to pull back out and start using again. Next up we have the Nars Skin Deep palette. I don't believe this one's available anymore either, and I may go ahead and declutter this one because as you can see it didn't get a lot of use just because it's not as friendly for like a fair skin tone. It runs kind of dark overall, particularly the matte shades. This shade is the lightest one in the palette, and even though it looks kind of light in the pan, it's so pigmented that when I try to blend it out on my eyes and sheer it out, it's really hard to do that. So overall I just found this one a little bit trickier to work with, and I'd always have to pull like a lighter transition shade from a different palette, which I don't usually like to do. So I'm going to go ahead and put this one in my declutter pile. And then next we have my Huda Beauty collection. So let's start with the bigger palettes. This one is the new Nude, and this one's been duped so many times, and honestly these shades here are starting to dry out a little bit. Like if I try to dip into them, I mean they pick up but not nearly as well as they used to, so that's kind of a bummer with this palette. I also didn't really care for this concealer shade, and that one's starting to dry out too. The rest of the powder shades are fine. I'm not a fan of pressed glitters either, so while I did like some of the rosier tones in this palette, it's not really my favorite of Huda's palettes, even though I thought I was going to absolutely love this one. Still, I do want to keep it around because there are constantly palettes coming out that have this same color story that I want to be able to compare to this one. Next up we have Desert Dusk. This one is really, really beautiful. It does kind of lean a little bit darker as well, kind of like the Nars one I was just mentioning. So really the best transition shade I can use is this one right here, but really it's the only one that I can use on my fair skin tone. I can kind of use the shade Eden a little bit if I want to do like more of a peachy colored look. But other than that, this palette definitely runs a little bit deeper. I'm still going to keep it though, again, for comparisons. Next up we have the Rose Gold Remastered, and this is the new one. So I never owned the original. I kept hearing bad reviews about it, so I just skipped that one, and then when they relaunched it I decided to try it out, and I really, really love this one a lot. I love the color story. These shadows up here are so beautiful. They're just so creamy, and for some reason these have kind of stayed creamier than the ones in the new Nude palette. I'm not quite sure why. Maybe it's because this one didn't get quite as much use, but I definitely want to pull this one out and start using it again. I used it a lot when I first got it, and then it kind of just went in a drawer and I forgot about it. So another one to pull out for sure. And then we have a bunch of mini palettes. Her mini palettes are some of my favorites. Sometimes I feel like the formula is better on these, and I think that's kind of strange because it's probably exactly the same as the larger palettes. I don't know, it's probably just in my head. But anyway, we have the first original Obsessions palette. So we have the Mauve Obsessions. This one, really pretty dusty kind of pinks and berry tones. And then we have the Warm Browns, which is more warm tones. And then Smoky Obsessions was definitely my favorite out of all of these. Again, just because it's neutral. I loved these lid shades so much. This one was beautiful. This one I used a ton as well. So this one definitely got the most use out of all of these from me. I also have Gemstone Obsessions. This one I bought just because I was collecting these, but to be honest with you, I never use it because it's all shimmer shades and I definitely need a matte in a palette to complete a look. So I'm thinking about maybe decluttering this one because I just never reach for it at all. I swatched it a couple of times, but that's about it. And then we have Coral Obsessions. This one's really pretty too. I kind of reach for this one more in the summertime because it has more of those bright punchy colors, but it's a fun palette. Then we have Amethyst Obsessions. These purples are absolutely beautiful. I love this one too. And then we have Topaz Obsessions. This one reminds me a little bit of the warm one, but it doesn't quite have as many, I don't know, it's like a little bit lighter maybe in color is what I'm trying to say. Yeah, so you can see the two. I think I definitely preferred this one over this one just because, again, with the fair skin, I feel like this one has more usable shades in it than this one. And then last but not least, we have the Nude Obsessions. I love these so much. I did a video on them and I love all three. This one is definitely my favorite, which is the lightest one. It's perfect. It's so beautiful on fair skin. These colors are gorgeous. The formula is amazing. Love this one so much. And then next we have Nude Medium. And this one too, even though it's meant for more medium skin tones, I can use this on my fair skin no problem. It doesn't run overly dark. So I really like this one too. And then we have Nude Rich. And this one, even though it's meant for deeper skin tones, I still can use quite a bit of this palette. I still have a couple of transition shades that I can use, and I created really pretty looks with this palette. I love these berry tones, so I really like this one too. All right, and then moving on, the next drawer is all indie brands. So you have Nabla, Ace Beauté, Ciate London, and then something from the Body Shop. But I totally forgot to mention the Huda Beauty Mercury Retrograde palette. I just found this because I had pulled it out. I've been using it lately, so I didn't want to forget to show you this one really quick. I did a whole video on it in case you missed that, but this one I really enjoyed too. It's a colorful palette, but it's not super duper colorful, and I just think some of the textures in here are so pretty as well. Even the glitter I like because it's not really like a glitter, it's creamy. It's just a really interesting texture. So this is another really good one from Huda. All right, so why don't we go ahead and start with Ace Beauté. So this one's their Grandiose palette. I got this one in a boxy charm and it just has really pretty warm tones. I think Ace Beauté's formula is fantastic. It's very, very pigmented, but I still find them to be pretty easy to work with. So this one's just a smaller 8-pan palette. And I think this is kind of just like a smaller version of their Quintessential palette, which, you know, they kind of have like similar vibe as far as the packaging goes. And I think this one has quite a bit of warm tones in it as well, but it's a lot larger. So yeah, in here we have 16 shades, and actually you have a nice mix of warm and cool shades in here. I really love this one right here, Starry Nights. It's such a beautiful silver. And again, formula is just fantastic on this. I haven't used this one that much. As you can see, a lot of the shades are completely untouched, but I think it's really pretty. I definitely have to pull this out and use it a little bit more. Next up we have the Flare palette. This one's a little bit more of a colorful palette, and I bought this because I was getting a lot of requests on Instagram. I was doing a lot of swatching at the time when I bought this. I was doing the stencil swatches, and I could not wait to create swatches of this because the colors are so beautiful. But I think I just got caught up in that because this isn't something that I really could see myself using all that much. Even though I think it's beautiful to look at and swatch, I don't really see myself putting this on my eyes that much. But I still want to hang on to it because as we head into spring and summer, especially and more colorful palettes come out, I might need it for comparison. So I'm going to just hold on to that. All right, and then the last ones I have from Ace Beauté are their Paradise collection. So the first one is Classical Paradise, and I showed this one in a recent video about my favorite fall palettes. This one just totally screams fall to me. I love kind of the more unique fall shades that are in this palette, like Golden Apple and Sunflower, and this one right here, Mineral, is so beautiful. It's kind of like more of a taupey gray. So I love this one. I think it's amazing, and again, the formula is really good on it. Also, Paradise Fallen is the perfect like gray and purple palette. This one's probably my favorite, and then I would say Classical Paradise is my second favorite. It's a very close second, but this one is just so beautiful, and the formula is really good too. And Blossom Passion is, this one's probably my least favorite because I don't normally wear pinks and reds on my eyes too much. I feel like they make me look like I'm sick. And there's just so many of them in here, but I think I bought this as a package deal. I think it was a little bit cheaper to just get all four, so that's why I did that, but I really don't use this one all that much. And then we have Slice of Paradise. This one is a really bright kind of fun palette, and you would think that I wouldn't use this one, but actually I do use it once in a while, more in the summertime, because there are a few really standout shades in here that I like. I love Flamingo as a transition. It's kind of like a dusty pink. And then Starling is a really unique purple shade. I think it's just so fun in the summertime, kind of mixed with Peacock. And Fruit Dove is a really beautiful green, but there's definitely some shades in here that I never reach for, like Daffodil and Passion Fruit and Kiwi and Bluebell. Like those four that are neon are kind of not really my thing, but even this Persimmon shade is really beautiful when it's blended out on the eyes. So this one is probably number 3 out of 4, I would say. All right, so let's move on to Nabla, because Nabla is one of my favorite eyeshadow palette brands of all time. Let's start with the Dreamy palette. This is the first one that I ever purchased from them, and it's just like the most beautiful palette, especially if you have fair skin or light skin. I think it just works so well. It's kind of like similar to the Too Faced White Peach, but I like this color story even more than that one because I use every single shade in this palette, and that's something that I don't say very often, but every single shade is just beautiful. I especially love this Metal Cupid shade, and the formula is just fantastic. This one, Inception, it's the most beautiful purple. I know I keep saying beautiful, but that's just what I think of when I look at this palette. It's gorgeous. And then the second palette I bought from them was the Soul Blooming palette, and this is kind of like a sister version of Dreamy. You have, again, these beautiful, soft, feminine, like romantic shades in here, and this is another one that I can use every single color. This one, Garden Gate, is one of my favorite shades in it too. It has like a duochrome. It's so beautiful, and I love like topping some shades with this one, and it totally changes them. So amazing palette right here. I'm honestly so glad that Nabla is at Ulta now because it makes it much easier than just ordering them from Italy. So next we have the Secret palette, and actually they just sent this to me very recently. I was talking to my PR contact with Nabla. I actually purchased, I should mention, these two first a couple years back now, and then recently I got on Nabla's PR list, so the rest of them that I'm going to show you were actually sent to me in PR. I was super excited because these were like some of my favorite palettes in my whole collection, and when they reached out to me I was like, yes. So anyway, when they came to Ulta, she had sent me this one, and it's beautiful. Again, I pretty much use every single shade in this palette except for the black. You can see that one's not really touched, but every other shade is just gorgeous. So that's another really good one. And then next we have the Poison Garden palette. Actually, I bought this one too after the Soul Blooming. So this is another one that I purchased before I got on their list. And this one I really like as well. When I first got it, I kind of felt like it wasn't super cohesive, but then I started figuring out what looks I wanted to make with it. And I feel like it actually flows together better than you think it would. And some of these shadows I was able to pair together in more unexpected ways, but I love this Zen color as a transition. It's beautiful. And this Subliminal shade right here, when I wear this on my eyes, I get so many compliments. I haven't in a while, but there were some videos a while back where I was wearing this palette a lot, and I got so many compliments, especially on this gold shade right here. So this is another one that I really enjoy a lot. And then we have the Dreamy 2. This one just came out very, very recently, and they sent me the collection. And this one has kind of more of like a darker, smokier vibe than the original Dreamy, but I love it just the same. I think, you know, those kind of scream like spring and summer to me, and this one is like the perfect fall, winter kind of palette. And I haven't gotten a chance to play with this one as much as I'd like to yet because I just got it, so I definitely plan to play with this one a little bit more soon. And then the last two from Nabla are these really adorable cutie palettes. So first we have the nude one. This one is definitely my favorite, and these shadows are so interesting too because they have these latex nude shades which are mattes, but the way that they go on is so smooth and almost like creamy. They're so interesting. Oh, I got a little bit of black in there, but they're just like the smoothest shadows ever. And oh my gosh, this color Seducer is one of my favorite lid shades in this palette. So this one is beautiful. And then the coral one, I feel like this one is really pretty to look at, but it's not my favorite because it doesn't have a transition shade for me in here. It kind of leans really dark, at least with the mattes. I mean, this one is like a really bright color and not something I would normally use as a transition. This one though is so pretty. This shade Got You for a lid shade. So sometimes I'll just pull these out and use them together. Even though I normally don't like dipping into other palettes, I sometimes will use a transition out of here and then use this one. So anyway, that is my Nabla collection. All right, so then we just have a couple of random palettes, including this Down to Earth palette from the Body Shop. Sadly, this one is no longer made, and I'm really bummed about that. This one was one of my favorite shades, this green. It's so beautiful, and the formula was really good on this one too. But sadly, I want to say this is like 4 or 5 years old now, so I don't know if I can really put this on my eyes at this point. I would feel a little bit funny about it. I mean, it doesn't seem like there's anything off about it necessarily, but I just, the formula still feels really good and soft actually. It might be okay. I'm gonna have to go look back through my blog posts and see when exactly I bought this, because if it's not as old as I'm thinking it is, I may keep it because it's beautiful. And then next up we have the Smashbox Shape Matters palette. This is actually the only Smashbox palette I own, believe it or not. This one's an all matte palette. It's a little cute mini version and I really like it a lot. I got this from Ulta when I was still blogging before my YouTube channel, and they had sponsored me for a post. So they had me just choose a whole bunch of new things off the site to talk about, and this was one of the things that I chose. And I really loved the formula of this one too. I felt like the shadows were really creamy and buttery. I don't know if they still make this one, but it's a cute little travel palette. Next I have the Marvelous Mauves palette from Dose of Colors. I really like the formula of this one, but I just don't reach for it all that often. I don't know why, because it is really pretty and I do love these dustier mauve colors, so I should definitely take this out and play with it a little bit again. All right, and then last but not least, we have some Ciate palettes. These are actually still in the box. I did use them though. I don't know why I kept them in their boxes, but these were the Astro Lights. It came in burnt and jeweled. So I might have been keeping them for like ingredient information or something. Sometimes I do that if, yeah, the ingredients are not on the back of the palette. Sometimes I'll keep the boxes just to have that. So here's a look at the jeweled one. These were really beautiful palettes too, and I do like Ciate's formula. So this one just had some really pretty duochrome shades in it. I really liked that one a lot, and I love just the small compact size of these. And then this one was burnt. And then I also have the Glitter Storm palette from Ciate, and I loved the packaging on this one. I loved playing with it. It was so much fun. So inside we have some really pretty colors as well. It's just very muted, very neutral for the most part. These up here look like they're pressed glitters, but they're actually like shimmer shades with just like a little bit of chunkier glitter in them. So they're not like your traditional glitter shade where you feel like you're gonna get all the particles in your eyes. So this was just a really pretty palette with a nice formula. And then inside this pouch was the Pretty Fun and Fearless palette. And this one, I feel like this was a collab with somebody. I can't think off the top of my head now who it was, but this one was really popular for a long time, and I did love this one. It got a lot of use. As you can see, it's kind of a mess. I never hit pan on anything, but I just loved the color story in here because you had your rosy tones, but also just your basic neutrals. And I thought, I don't know, it was just like a really easy to use, fun palette, and the formula was good too. Okay, so next drawer is Pure Cosmetics and Violet Voss, and then also one Marc Jacobs palette. So let me just show you this one really quick before we move on to the other brands. So this is the Stiletto palette. I talked about this one very recently in a video. I love this palette, definitely hanging on to it. It's one of my favorite cool tone palettes to reach for, and I think the formula is really good. Plus I love just how small and compact it is. And then moving on to Violet Voss, we have the Flamingo palette, and this one is just more of like a bright colored palette, but it's also like it has some really beautiful shades in here. Like this surf shade was one of my favorite ones to use. I love this shade Island here with the peachiness to it. Flip flops, bikini, very, very beautiful palette overall. And I actually use this one quite a bit for comparisons, especially in the spring and summer when all the colorful palettes come out. So definitely going to hang on to this one. And then next I have the Creme Brulee Fun Sized palette from Violet Voss also. And this one's just like, you know, a basic neutral palette. I bought this one at Sephora when I was standing at the checkout. They had it with like all the other little mini size things when you're standing there waiting. So it was kind of an impulse buy, and it's a nice palette. I don't reach for it all that often, but I mean, I should, because I think the formula is good and it's just like a really easy to wear neutral palette, and I like that it's small. Next one is the hashtag palette. This one I actually bought on Emily Noel's recommendation because it is so pretty, and I didn't even think about it until I saw her video on it and just more close-ups and swatches, and I just thought it was gorgeous. I mean, up here you basically have like your warm neutral shades, but then starting here and kind of going down, you have like these beautiful purples, and like these are pinks, but they're not like the bright pinks that make you look like you're sick. They kind of have like a peachiness to them that's just like a little bit warmer. So this is another one I really enjoy a lot. Next we have the Violet Voss Taupe Notch. This is one that I believe was discontinued, and I don't know why, because it is like the most beautiful neutral palette that is more cool toned. So many neutral palettes have those warm tones in it. This one is almost all cool tones, and it's gorgeous. Nobody else has come out with a palette like this that I can think of, and I really wish they would. If I could come out with a palette with just all cool tone neutrals, I think that would be so much fun. I just thought this was so cool and unique, so definitely hang on to this one. This one is the Holy Grail palette from Violet Voss, and this one is, again, really beautiful neutrals for the most part, but this one has a little bit more warm tones. It does have a few cool shades in here though, and then you also have a few rosy tones in this one too. And then the last one is Like a Boss. So this one, very similar to the Holy Grail palette, I feel like, until you get to about here, and then it has some yellows and greens and then like a gray and a black, so some cooler tones in this one mixed with warm. All right, and then moving on to Pure, first we have the Barbie palette, and this one, I don't really see myself using this one that often. They did send it to me in PR, so it wasn't something that I actually went out and bought myself, but I think my sister would love this palette, so I'm probably just going to gift it to her. I really just swatched it and that was it. And I think the formula is good, but it just doesn't really speak to me as far as the colors go. Next we have the Out of the Blue palette. This one's also a fairly recent release that they sent to me as well. And I guess the ingredients in the formula was supposed to like cancel out the effects of blue light, like on your skin or something. It seemed a little bit gimmicky to me. I don't know if it's true, but you know, this is another one that I'll probably just give away because I don't use it that much. And then next we have the BoxyCharm palette. So this one I did get for free in the BoxyCharm, but honestly, I didn't think the formula was the best on this one. I know it did get a lot of really negative reviews as well. So I'm gonna go ahead and declutter this one. Next we have the Trolls palette from Pure. So they did a couple of movie palettes just like Lorac did, and this one, you know, I thought it was okay. I didn't think, again, the formula was their absolute best. It was all right. I did like kind of the more muted colors that were in here with the exception of that hot pink, but you know, it was a pretty palette. It's just really old. I want to say this came out in 2016 or something, so it's probably about 4 years old now. I'm probably going to go ahead and just declutter this one. Next up is the Pure Pro and Etienne palette. I believe he is a pro makeup artist. So anyway, this palette is actually really beautiful, and I use this a ton. It's one of those ones that has just kind of been in a drawer and I forgot that I had it, but I really do like the color selection in here. I think it has a lot of cool tones as well as some pretty warm tones, and I think that overall the colors work really well for like my skin tone as well. So I think I'm going to keep this one. Next up we have the Creator palette. So this one was kind of interesting because it had this foam piece in here that you were supposed to be able to take out, and you could go ahead and just use this as a Z palette. And from what I remember, they were going to be selling shadow singles, but I don't think that they ever went ahead with that. I'm not sure. I haven't checked their website in a while, but this was something now that came out probably 2 or 3 years ago. So, you know, I don't know. I think the formula was nice on this one, but again, it's not really one that I reach for. You know, I think the color story is fine, but I also don't think it's anything super unique or special to my collection, so it's probably just taking up room at this point, so I think I'm going to declutter that. And next we have the Festival palette. This one also came in a BoxyCharm. I think it's pretty. Again, I did swatch it for Instagram or maybe in a Sunday haul or something, but I've never used it, so I'm going to go ahead and put this in my declutter pile as well, just because I don't think I'll use it that much. It does have the 2 pressed glitters, which I don't use, and again, I just feel like the color story, it's like shadows that I have a million times over, so I'm going to go ahead and put that aside. Next we have the Pure Visionary palette. This one was one of my favorite Pure palettes, so I think I'll probably still keep this. I really like the colors in here. I liked the formula, so I'll hang on to this one for sure. Next we have the My Little Pony palette. This was another movie one that they did, and just like the troll one, I think I'm going to get rid of it just because I really don't use it and it's pretty old at this point. And then last but not least, this was another favorite of mine from Pure. This is the Soiree Diaries. It was just such a pretty neutral palette. I know a lot of you guys are going to look at this and say it's so boring, like why would you keep it? I do have these shades in a million other palettes, but I just loved the combination of them in this one because again, you had like 2 rows of warm tones right here and then 2 rows of cool. So it just was like broken up really nicely, and I felt like no matter what kind of a neutral look I wanted, I could just pick up this palette and either create a warm look or a cool look. So I think I'm going to keep this one. I'm actually really sad that this is discontinued. All right, guys, so moving on to the next drawer, I just quickly want to mention this Pure one that I forgot about because it wasn't in the drawer with the rest of the Pure stuff. I had it pulled out because I've been using it since the holidays. So this is their Crystal Clear Ultimate Face Palette, and it was from their holiday collection from this year, and I thought this was a really nice palette. I know I mentioned it in a few different videos, but you have all shimmer shades on this side, all mattes over here, and then face products in the middle, and I thought the formula was really, really good, and you know, it's just a lot of eyeshadow for a pretty decent price. And then I also just found this little Marc Jacobs palette mixed in with this stuff instead of in the drawer with the Stiletto palette. So I'm going to move this over to that drawer once I'm done. But this one is Fantasine, and it came in the limited edition white packaging along with the bronzer that I also have, the Tanfastic. And these are really beautiful as well. I loved kind of the summery vibe that this one had. This light taupey gray was a perfect transition color. I loved the dusty pinks. This kind of vintagey coppery gold was really beautiful as well. And then I also love this coral shade down here. So it was just like a really fun summertime palette. Next we have the Alomar Cosmetics palette, and this was the original one that they did, and she had actually contacted me before the brand even launched and asked if I would do swatches for their website. And I was so excited because that was at the time when I was doing all those cool stencil swatches on Instagram. They were just like a really big thing at the time. So I got sent this palette way ahead of time. I actually almost leaked it, or I did leak it by accident because it came in a BoxyCharm box. I was thinking it was something that BoxyCharm sent versus like what she sent me. So I unboxed it on Instagram stories, and then she was like, no, this is the palette I was talking about. And she like emailed me quickly, and I was like, oh my God. And I took the stories down, but a few people had seen it already. It all happened within, I don't know, a matter of like a couple of minutes. So not a lot of people had seen that story, but I felt so bad about that. So anyway, I thought the formula of this palette was fantastic. Really good quality. The only thing is I don't really wear it all that much. I don't know if it's just the combination of colors in here, but I don't find myself reaching for it a lot. So I don't know. I don't know if I want to keep it or declutter it because I have actually used this one for comparisons in the past. So I may hang on to it and just keep it for a little while longer. And then next up we have the LA Splash Golden Gatsby palette. This is the only palette that I own from LA Splash, but I remember when I first got this and I showed it in a Sunday haul, and I got so many requests to do looks with it, and I completely dropped the ball on that, and I never ended up getting those videos up. But I just thought this palette was beautiful, and these shimmer shades were some of the creamiest shimmers ever. I don't know if they, if they still are, because they almost had a cream element to it, and I was thinking those are the type that usually tend to dry out. They feel like they're okay. They don't feel as creamy as they once did, but I just really loved the colors in here. This Zazzled shade was so beautiful, and Mint Julep. Oh my gosh, I'm kind of excited about this palette all over again. I believe it's still available at Ulta as well, so I'll link to it down below if it is. All right, and then next up we have some palettes from Winky Luxe. So the first one is the Smitten palette. I believe this one was a Valentine's Day release, and other than swatching it, I really didn't use this one very much. It's just not really my vibe. I mean, a couple of these colors I wouldn't wear at all, and then these 4 that I would, I mean, I don't know. It's just not something that I ever really reach for, so I think I'm just going to put this one in the declutter. I also have a kitten palette that says BoxyCharm, so I don't know if this one was a BoxyCharm exclusive or if it came in BoxyCharm, but just looking at this one too, I just kind of feel like it's similar to the Ciate London Glitter Storm palette a little bit, like color-wise, and I think I like the formula of that one better than this one, so I'm probably going to let this one go too. I just don't see anything super unique about it. And then next we have the La Fruta palette from Marcia. I think she's like a YouTuber. I think this was a collab that they did, but that's what that one looked like. I don't know. This is not another one that I reached for very often just because it's kind of all bright colors. And usually I don't mind color, but I like to have some neutrals mixed in with it. And this one was just all brights. So, you know, these colors that I would use for transition, like I probably wouldn't use very much. So I'm going to go ahead and declutter this one too. And then the last Winky Luxe palette I have is the Coffee palette. I remember this one. This one I actually really liked. I loved these cool tones, and it actually smells like coffee too. But now that I've been kind of going through my collection, I have a lot of them fresh on my mind. I'm thinking that this looks very similar to that Pretty Vulgar palette. So let me just grab that and compare them really quick. All right, yeah, so I mean, I'm seeing some identical shades between these two right here. So I haven't tried the Pretty Vulgar yet. I'm not sure what the formula is like, but I think I'm just gonna set this one aside right now. And I'm gonna try to use the Pretty Vulgar palette this week and just see what I think of the formula, because if the Pretty Vulgar palette is a better formula than the Winky Luxe, I think I'll probably just declutter the Winky Luxe. So I definitely have to see about that. All right, and then next I have two Beauty Bakery palettes. First one is their Neapolitan Ice Cream palette. I actually love this one. This one was so pretty, and it's kind of sad that they discontinued it because some of these colors in here were just really beautiful. There was this cocoa powder one that I loved using as just like a lid shade, and it's like a taupe, but it also has a little bit of like purpliness to it. And this color Vanilla Bean was also really, really pretty. And Pistachio. I mean, they're not, you know, super unique, but I did like kind of just the combination of colors that was in this one, so I might keep it just because I really like it a lot. If it's something that I don't use down the road, I'll probably get rid of it during the next declutter. And I think as I'm going through, and some of these ones that are kind of on the fence, I'll probably consider decluttering next time around if I don't reach for them between now and then. And then we have the Game of Cones Fury of the Oven palette, and this one, yeah, this one I really didn't get much use out of. I did think the formula was really nice, but I guess I just had trouble kind of picturing like how to use these colors together, especially because there's no transition shade in here again. It's mostly shimmer shades. You do have like this one and this one, which aren't exactly mattes, but they're kind of like satiny finishes, which I could totally use as a crease color. And it's not saying that you have to use all mattes in your crease, it's just what I prefer. But that being said, there were some absolutely gorgeous shimmer shades in here. Like this one, Slay Scale, was like kind of a lavender pink. How beautiful is that? This one, Poppy Seed, is like a brownish green. That one is gorgeous. Burn Cloak. Okay, now I'm kind of talking myself into keeping this one because these shimmer shades are so pretty. And normally I don't like to reach into another palette for like a crease color, but I mean, some of these are just really unique and beautiful, so I don't know. I guess I'll do the same with this one. I'll keep it for now, but if I don't find myself using it, then during the next declutter, I will get rid of it. All right, so next we have the Colored Rain Queen of Hearts palette. This one, oh my gosh, I missed out on it the first time. There was so much hype with this palette. It sold out and it took forever for them to get it back because at the time Colored Rain was a much smaller brand, and I guess, I don't know why it took them so long, but I finally got it. I want to say it was like the following year. At Black Friday, they had a deal on it, so I grabbed it, and I don't regret it. I think this palette is really beautiful. This shade Princess and Royal Highness, I mean, it's hard to see with the gold shininess in the way, but there you go. I mean, they're really pretty shades. This one, Queen Mother, was a beautiful purple. I mean, I just liked the combination in here. Plus, I have used this one for many comparisons, so I'm going to hang on to this. Next I have my Persona collection. So let's start with the original Identity palette. This one is in the top palettes in my entire collection, right up there with the Tartelette 2 in Bloom, because it's just, first of all, the formula is one of my favorite formulas. It's so like creamy and so soft. I mean, these are some of the softest eyeshadows that I own, and I love how it's a little bit colorful, but it's not like super bright. It's very muted overall, and I just love how there's warm tones and there's cool tones. It has a little bit of everything, just like the Tartelette in Bloom. So this is one of my all-time favorites. Definitely hanging on to that. And then next we have the Identity 2 palette. This one came out very, very recently, and to be honest with you, I don't love it as much as the original. I think the formula is good. It's just that, you know, there's some brighter colors in here that I don't wear normally, and you know, there's some really pretty ones too though. Like this Independent shade right here, it's kind of like a deep gunmetal-y gray bluish color. Yes, that's its official name. No, I don't know. It's hard to describe colors sometimes, but yeah, I mean, I do really like a few of them. So, I mean, I'll keep it. I'll have to wait and see if this is something again like that I see myself using. If not, I may consider decluttering it. And then next we have these two mini palettes that they came out with. The first one is the pink palette, and this one I honestly don't use all that often, and I might just go ahead and declutter this because first of all, it's an all matte palette. Second, 2 of the 5 shades are ones that I don't really use because I don't like to wear pinks on my eyes that much. So if it had a lot more colors in it, I would consider keeping it, but I just feel like I don't reach for this one at all. So this one's gonna go in the declutter, but I do really love this copper one. So this is what this looks like. And now that I'm looking at it, actually, it's reminding me of that Lorac, those little mini unzipped palettes that I showed in the last video. So let me just grab that one really quick and see how they compare. It's so funny because I'm seeing similarities in palettes that I never would have thought of before, but because I'm looking at all of them like within a few days of each other, then certain things are standing out to me more than others. But yeah, I mean, as you can see, these are like super close. These 2 shades are kind of in the wrong order, but you have like an off-white shimmer shade here. This one's just slightly deeper. Then you have this kind of taupey tan shade. You have the corally matte shades. Then you have this copper. This one's a little bit more golden while this one's more copper, but they're pretty close. And then you have the darker matte brown at the end. So if I had to pick one, I would definitely go with the Persona. Like if you saw this Lorac one and you liked it in my last video, I would consider getting this one because I just think the formula is so much better with the Persona. It's really, really good. Okay, last but not least, we have my Lime Crime palettes. So the first one is the Original Venus. And this one, while it's not one that I reach for all that often, I did get a steal on it. It was 50% off at Ulta. But I have used this one for comparisons in the past. Every once in a while, a company will come out with a dupe of this. So I want to keep it, I guess, just for that reason. But, you know, once in a while, I do use it. But Venus 3 is one that I use quite a bit more just because this is more my vibe. I really love these colors, Beam and Heavenly. They're just like the most beautiful lid shades. It has a very ethereal, kind of soft, romantic vibe to it. So this one I definitely want to keep because I think it's really beautiful. And then we have the Venus Immortalis palette. I did mention this one in my 2019 fails video or regrets or whatever it was, that I regretted buying this one because unfortunately the formula was not the best. So we have this shade Ash right here, which totally got hard pan immediately, and if you try to swatch it, like nothing comes out at all. Same thing with this Marble shade. I don't know if you can kind of see like how it's glazed over. It doesn't show up on the skin. Same thing with this shade Moth. It did pretty much, again, same type of thing. Now, the shimmer shades Echo and Hail are gorgeous. I mean, very, very shiny. So what I'm going to try to do before I completely call this one a loss is scrape off the top layer of these and see if that helps them work a little bit better. But if the same thing happens again, I'm probably going to declutter this one next time because I have kind of similar shades in the Marc Jacobs Stiletto palette, and I really like that one a lot. But since I just bought this, I want to give it a chance. I want to see if maybe scraping the top layer off of those will help them a little bit. So I don't know. You may see this one in a future declutter, but hopefully not. And then next we have the 2 Venus XL palettes. So this one's the original, and while it does have some of those pink shades in it that I'm not crazy about, it also has some really pretty purples and dusty mauvey shades and some neutrals. So because it's a large palette and there's only like a couple of these hotter pink shades that I won't use, I'm still going to keep it. And I do really like the formula of this one. I like the overall vibe, so I'll hang on to that. And then the Venus XL2, this one, as soon as I saw this, I knew I had to get it because it's a very unique color scheme with these softer greens mixed with the pinks. I mean, again, it's a very like ethereal palette similar to the Venus 3. And I absolutely love the looks that I created with it. Some of these shimmer shades, I know people were disappointed because they felt like they weren't super intense, but I think a lot of them are supposed to be more sheer, kind of just like a wash of color, or to be layered over some of the matte shades. So I definitely want to keep this one. I do have a dupe version of it too. I did a video comparing the two, but I want to keep the original just in case more dupes come out, and that way I'll have the original to compare them to. All right, so moving on to the next drawer, we have the Stila After Hours palette. This is actually the only Stila palette I own. I never ended up buying those Eyes Are the Window palettes that everybody was raving about a while back. I don't know why, I always wanted to, I just never did. And I really do like the formula of this one a lot. I haven't had a chance to use it as much as I'd like to, but just looking at it right now, it's kind of reminding me of that Golden Gatsby palette from LA Splash. So I just want to quickly grab that and do a quick comparison. All right, so here they are side by side. I mean, I guess they're not as alike as I thought they were. I think it was those greens that was throwing me off because the green shade looks almost exactly the same, but that really pretty kind of pale green mint julep shade in the corner of this one is not in the Stila palette. Also, the Stila palette has that kind of burgundy shimmer shade. So, you know, not identical, but I definitely see some similarities, especially with the neutral shades and then with that pop of green. So anyway, I definitely want to keep this one because I haven't owned it for that long and I want to continue using it. Next up, I have several palettes from Kylie Cosmetics, and I actually bought these just for a video because I got a whole bunch of Kylie dupes from C-Color Cosmetics, which is one of my favorite dupe brands, and you're going to see all of their palettes once I get to the drugstore version of this video. But I bought them because I wanted to compare the C-Color ones to the originals. So this one is the Nice palette, I believe. This one was part of her, I want to say 2017 or 2018 maybe, holiday collection, and the packaging is different. It's all black now, so she kind of got rid of the holiday packaging. It used to be white with like these silver stripes, I think. But I really like the color story of this palette. Actually, Bad Habit had done a dupe of this palette as well. They're not in business anymore, so if you like this color story, definitely check out the C-Color dupe because it's super affordable, and I really think the formula is just as good, if not better, than the Kylie formula. I think the Kylie formula is not worth the price, in my opinion. Next we have the Sipping Pretty palette. So I think this one was her birthday palette or something last year. So this one's a larger palette, and again, C-Color also has a dupe for this one, which is just as good, if not better. So definitely recommend checking that one out as well. And their website is ccolorcosmetics.com. I also have a coupon code for them that saves an extra 10%. So I'll put that up on the screen. It's CCBU10. So this one is the bronze palette. Again, it's just a really nice warm tone palette overall. I think the quality is fine, but definitely overpriced when you consider there is a dupe that's a lot cheaper. And then last but not least, this one's the Royal Peach palette. I actually bought this one way before the dupes. Like these three that I showed you were to do the dupe video, but this one I actually purchased when it first came out, when she kind of was just launching her brand. And I remember when everybody got these, they smelled like chemicals or something, and they were saying it was the glue, and a lot of people were disappointed in the formula of this one. I feel like it's kind of the same as all her other palettes. So you know, again, I just think you pay a lot of money for these, and ColourPop is better, C-Color Cosmetics is better. So I don't think I'm going to be buying any more of Kylie's palettes unless there's something that's like the most beautiful color story ever that I just have to have. But you know, it's not a bad formula, I just don't think it's worth the price. So then we have the KKW Beauty Classic Blossom palette. I just got this one very, very recently. I saw it in Ulta, and just seeing this in person and swatching it, I just thought it felt like a really nice formula, and I like the color story. I like these kind of rosy tone neutrals, so I really haven't had too much of a chance to play with this one yet, so I don't have an opinion on the formula at the moment. I used it once and I felt like it worked okay. I think the formula is a little bit better than Kylie's, but at the same time I think back to ColourPop again, and you can get so much for the price with them. And then next I have the Tati Beauty palette. I still have not reviewed this one on my channel. I'm very torn with the formula of this just because I tried some of the more neutral shades in the palette and loved it so much. I thought the formula was great, but then I tried some of these over here, like some of the deeper shades, and they were a little bit patchy. And also, I'm not a fan of the glitters, and I'm also not crazy about the fact that these two rows right here are very similar, because even though these have the micro glitter, they go on the eyes kind of matte looking anyway, so I almost feel like there's double the shades in some cases. So while I don't think it's a terrible palette, I do think it's not really for me necessarily. I just, you know, I don't see myself reaching for it all that much. Still, I am going to keep it because I just bought it and I should use it, but you know, it does definitely have its issues. All right, and then we have Dominique palettes. So the first one I have is the Latte palette. This one is probably my favorite of hers. I think the formula is wonderful on it. These shimmer shades down here are just the most beautiful, easy to wear kind of neutrals, but at the same time, they're a little bit colorful. Like you have this really kind of olivey green one, you have this taupe, and then this really pretty rose gold. I think the mattes are very like blendable, very soft, so I definitely like this one a lot. Next up is Celestial Thunder, and this one I just got in my BoxyCharm last month or the month before, and this is just a scaled down version of her Celestial, what is it called? I can't think of it off the top of my head, but it's just a larger version of this palette. It has all of these shades plus a few more, and this one, even though it's brand new, I think I'm going to declutter it because I felt like some of the shades were a little bit patchy, especially the mattes, and I don't see myself using this because it's just kind of too much color for me. So I'm going to put this in the declutter pile. And then I also have the Rustic Glam palette. So this one I got over the summer, and I think the color story of this one is really unique and interesting, so I'm going to keep it. But this formula also has its issues a little bit, like this shade right here, Cactus, which is one of my favorite shades in the palette. I think it's very unique, but it's a little bit patchy when you're trying to blend it on your eyes. Also, this blue is the same way, but the neutral shades work out fine. I think the shimmers are fine, so I'm willing to kind of work with it a little bit just because I do like the color story, and I think it's like a little bit more interesting than some of my other palettes, so I'm going to hang on to this one for now. Next up is my Bare Minerals collection. I have quite a few from them as well. So the first one is the Aurora Lights palette. This one came out, I want to say last holiday season. I really loved the colors in this one. This one was one of those colorful palettes that's not super colorful, and the formula was amazing on it. Like, it was so pigmented. It is really pigmented. I mean, it's just gorgeous, and I'm very sad that they discontinued this. I thought it was one of their best palettes in a really long time. Usually their palettes are very like understated, which I like, but this was something a little bit different for them. And I got actually a lot of use out of it. This Galaxy shade was one of my favorites to wear on the lid. So pretty. Next we have the Ready eyeshadow palette, and this one is the Sexy Neutrals. I don't know if they still have these actually. This is really old. I should probably declutter this one. They had a whole bunch in this series where it was just like 8 shadows, and I think they had quads and maybe ones that were a little bigger than this. I can't remember 100%, but you know, I liked the formula of this one. I thought it was a nice palette, but I never use it, so I'm gonna put it away. Next I have the Bare Metals palette. I want to say this one was a QVC exclusive maybe. I know this was kind of a limited edition type of thing, so I really liked the formula of this one too. It's getting older at this point, but I mean, it's still swatching really nicely, and the formula of Bare Minerals shadows is so super smooth, and I think if you have like more mature eyes or like dry skin, this is a beautiful formula. It blends really effortlessly. It kind of reminds me of Lorac a little bit, just because of how smooth they are on your eyes. So while I like this palette, I'm kind of afraid that it's a little bit too old. I'm actually going to set it aside and check and see when I got it before I actually declutter it, because I do like it, but if it's too old, I don't want to put it on my eyes. Next up is the Bare Sensuals palette. I remember this one. This one actually isn't that old. I think it was at Ulta last year, and I remember this being out on display, and all of them were gone. And I had asked them if they had any more in the back, and she checked, and they had one left. So I was able to get it, but it sold out so fast, and then it kind of never came back. But it was beautiful cool tones at a time when everybody was asking for cool tones because they were tired of the warm tone trend. So it just has these really like muted purples and lavenders, which I really like. So I'm definitely going to hang on to this one. I thought it was a beautiful palette. And then I have 4 of these little mini Gen Nude palettes, and these are really nice too. I think the Gen Nude formula is really good. Again, just very smooth and easy to work with. So first we have the Latte one, and this one's a little bit more warm tones. I think I need to do a video on like mini palettes and my mini palette collection and just kind of put them all together and compare them, because as we're going through, I'm finding out that I had a lot more little mini palettes than I thought I did. Why can't I get this open? And a lot of people are really liking mini palettes these days. So anyway, this one is Copper. This one's so pretty too. Like, look at that dusty mauve shade, the green. I like this one a lot. Next we have Rose, and this one is definitely more cool toned. It's a mostly kind of gray palette, and you have this dusty pink and then some lighter shades up top. And then the last one is neutral. And this one is just like basic everyday neutrals. They're a little bit more, I think, on the rosier side. This one's beautiful. Wow. All right. So I'm definitely kind of re-interested in these again. I think I'm going to keep these out and start using them a little bit more. All right, next up we have my Zoeva collection, and I actually did a whole video on this where I talked in depth about the different palettes, so I'm going to link that right above there in case you want to check that out. It's also going to be part of the makeup collection playlist that's at the very end of this video, so if you want to wait till the end of the video, then it'll be in that playlist. I'm going to link it right on the screen for you guys. So because I already did that video, I don't want to be super redundant. I'm just going to go through these very quickly. So the first one is Blanc Fusion, and this one is just a beautiful neutral palette, very like soft colors overall. I think it's great for more fair skin tones, and it also has a nice mix of cool shades here and then a couple of warm shades. Next up we have Eclectic Eyes, and this one is a colorful palette, but it's more muted colors, so if you're not a huge fan of wearing a lot of color on your eyes or brights, I think this is a great kind of way to break into color a little bit. Next we have the Melody palette. This is one of my favorites from Zoeva, and this one really surprised me a lot because some of the shades in here look totally different on the eyes than they do in the pan, especially this one right here, Crystal Wings. It's just like the most beautiful duochrome shade. This one is gorgeous as well. This purple. I ended up making so many beautiful looks with this palette. I did a video on this one as well, but the formula is amazing, as it is with most of Zoeva's palettes. I'm really glad that they're at Ulta now. Next we have Caramel Melange. This is another favorite of mine. It's just a really beautiful warm tone palette, but it doesn't go, again, super dark, so I think if you have more fair to light skin tones, this is one of those palettes where I feel like you can wear every single shade that's in here. Next up we have Screen Queen. I don't remember loving the formula of this one for some reason, and also just while the colors are pretty, it doesn't have enough mattes in it for me. They're all shimmer shades with the exception of this one right here. So while I love the Screen Queen brush set and I use that one all the time, I wasn't super crazy about this palette. Next we have Cocoa Blend. This is one of their most popular ones. I remember so many YouTubers talking about it, and while it does have a nice mix of warm and cool shades, I don't find myself reaching for this one super often. I don't know if it's just that I don't feel a cohesiveness with the shades in this palette. And then we have the Cafe palette. So this one is so beautiful. For some reason, the formula of this one wasn't the best either, if I remember correctly, but I did really love some of the colors in here. This green is fantastic, and this mauvey pink, but as you can see, they're just not picking up as well as some of the other ones that I was just showing you, and they got a little bit of hard pan, some of them, so I don't know. I'm torn because I love these olivey greens in here and these dusty purpley mauve shades, but I don't know. I just remember the formula not being fantastic. I'll have to test it out again and see what I think now that it's been a while. And then this is the IC palette. This one is not really a favorite of mine either. Again, it's all shimmer shades with the exception of this one right here. So while I do really love this color, green, and also this purple I think is pretty, you do have the purple one in the Melody palette that's kind of similar. And there's greens like this in a lot of other palettes too. So I don't think this one, at least for me, was really worth it. And then we have the Aristo palette, and this one, it kind of goes this way, but I'll just turn it. This one was beautiful. I really enjoyed this one a lot. Again, you have color, but it's more muted, and all the colors kind of coordinate together. So you have this really pretty kind of yellowy green with then the matte green, and you have the lighter blue with the deeper blue, and the peachy shades kind of go together. So it's just really coordinated and just really easy to use. And then we have the Opulence palette. This was another one that I'm not super crazy about. You have all shimmer shades with the exception of this red right here. So I'm not a fan of when they do that in palettes. I definitely need more of a mix of matte and shimmers for me. So this one was just, okay. Spice of Life. This one's another favorite. I love the tones in here. It's a warm tone palette again, but you also have a couple of cool shades like this one right here, and also this one called Unlike Any Other is a beautiful kind of silvery shade. It's so pretty. I also really like the ease of use of this one. You have a nice transition here, you have a warmer one here, and they go with just about any lid shade in the palette. I love the olivey green that they give you and this coppery shade. So there's a lot of variety in this one, and I really enjoy it. Next we have the Premier palette. This is another really pretty one. You do have some color in here, but they're definitely more understated, muted colors. This shade Say Goodbye was one of my favorites. It's like a bluish gray. It's a duochrome, so I love that one. I also love the Theatrical shade right here, this green, and this one. I mean, they're all beautiful. This one here, the show is over. There's so many good ones in this palette, so I love that one. And then Nude Spectrum is one that I recently got at Ulta. This is a larger palette for Zoeva, but I love it so much. It has a good mix again of the warm and the cool shades. This one is mostly neutral overall, and I couldn't be happier with it. I think the formula is amazing. I use this one a lot. And then I have a couple of mini palettes. The first one is Caramel Melange. So this is basically just a smaller version of the bigger one. So it has the exact same shades that are in the larger palette, just shrunken down. So I love that because if you love that palette but you want to travel somewhere and you don't want to tote the big thing around, you could always take this one with you, and it kind of has some of the essential shades from the larger palette. And then we also have the Precious palette. This one's pretty new. They sent this to me very recently in PR, and it's just so pretty. This one kind of makes me think of spring, actually. You do have a transition shade here with this dusty purpley gray, and then you have a deeper outer corner shade. And these shimmer shades are just so stunning. I feel like they do shimmer shades so well because they always surprise me. They always have a little bit of like a duochrome to them, or just something unexpected that they swatch a little bit differently than they look in the pan. And then these, I don't know why I was storing them with eyeshadow palettes, but these are the highlight and blush palettes that they came out with. So there's one that coordinates with the Cocoa Blend palette, and then one that goes with Spice of Life. And then this one's supposed to go with Caramel Melange. So those are really pretty as well. And then the next drawer is my Natasha Denona and Melt Cosmetics palettes, but I totally forgot about this Zoeva one because they just sent this to me very recently, so it was still out and it wasn't in my Zoeva drawer. So this is the Naturally Yours palette, and as you can see, it's brand new. I haven't touched it yet, but this is another really nice neutral option that doesn't lean too dark overall and has a mix of both warm and cool shades, but it leans more, I would say, to the cool side. So I really am excited to start playing with this one. Alright, so next let's quickly look at the two Melt Cosmetics palettes that I have. The first one is the Gemini palette. I honestly have not played with these nearly as much as I wanted to. As you can see, I've tried a few of the colors, but I haven't really dug in and tried all of them. So I definitely have to leave this out and make a point, put it in that pile with all the ones that I need to really start using, because just looking at this palette, it's so stunning and the formula feels so soft and just easy to work with. So I can't wait to start making looks with this one. And then we have the 27 palette, and this one is one that I took out during a fall palette video. It's one of my favorite fall palettes, and I actually use this one a lot more. As you can see, every shade has kind of been dipped into. It's a little bit messy now, but this one is just your basic neutral palette, but half of the palette is more warm tones, and then the other half is more cool. So I like that you have both options in here. It's a really versatile palette when it comes to neutrals. So this is another really good one from Melt Cosmetics. And then next up is Natasha Denona, and to be honest with you, I never thought I would purchase a Natasha Denona palette because they're so expensive, but then once I started really getting into dupes and all of these different brands were duping her palettes, I just decided I should have the original so that I could do comparisons, and I think it has paid off at the end of the day because those videos tend to get a lot of views. A lot of you guys really enjoy them, and it's nice being able to have the original to compare the dupes to that come out. So this is the Sunrise palette, and this one was actually a little bit more, I say affordable. I don't really mean it's affordable, but compared to $129, it was $65, and I actually like this, and I hope that she continues to do it because I think $65 is still a little bit more accessible than $129 for a palette, and you're getting about half the shadow in here, but this is like a normal amount of eyeshadow. The pans in her larger palettes are so big, most people, like average consumers, are not going to go through them. So when you're looking at something like this Sunrise palette, I think this is more than enough shadow for most people to use. So I hope she continues doing these smaller palettes because I think it's just easier for people to buy them. And next we have the Biba palette. This one, I really love the color story in so much. The only thing that disappointed me about it was some of these shades that are like a cream to powder formula because they're just a little bit harder to pick up now that I've had this for a while. I got this, I believe, back in the springtime, and these shades are just not as pigmented as they once were. I mean, they pick up easier with a finger than they do with a brush, but it's just, for this expensive of a palette, it's a shame that, these couple of shades that are like that are much harder to work with now. And there's also a really good affordable dupe out there now. Alter Ego made the Sahara palette that is so similar to this. They even copied those textures, and for $16 I don't mind as much if some of the shadows dry out, but for $129 it's kind of a bummer. And then next up we have the Sunset palette. This one is the first one I ever bought from Natasha Denona. There's so many dupes out there. This one is also a mess, and I have no idea why some of these shadows have like wetness around them, like moisture. That's kind of odd. I've never seen that before. I mean, it has this plastic sheet that's covering them, so I don't know if maybe some of the oils that are in the shadows are coming out. I don't know what that is, but anyway, there's so many different dupes for this palette everywhere, and even like the ColourPop Yes Please is very, very similar. So really you don't need to spend $129 on this one because I don't feel like the color story is as unique as something like the Biba. And then we have the Lila palette. This one has more kind of pinks and purples and some dusty, cooler tone shades. But again, there are a lot of dupes out there on the market with these exact same colors. So I would definitely just go for one of those. C Color makes a great one. Then we have the gold palette. I really love this one a lot. I love the color story, but again, there are dupes out there. And while I feel like these are a little bit maybe more pigmented than the dupes, I don't think they're $100 plus more pigmented. You know what I mean? Like you can still make the dupes work really well. And in fact, I sometimes like the dupes better just because they're a little easier to work with. Sometimes when a palette is super pigmented, it's harder to blend out on the eyes. So I usually end up reaching for the dupes more than I do these. And then we have the Star palette. This one is actually one of the larger palettes that she makes, and geez, the glitter is just getting everywhere. These are so messy. So this one doesn't really get a lot of use from me, but it almost looks like a mini gold palette over here. And then this side has a lot of really cool tone shades, so I think it's a beautiful palette. I don't know if there are any dupes out there for this one, but I'm guessing there must be. I just haven't checked. And then I have three little mini palettes. This one is the Mini Nude, and I really like this one a lot. I took this on a lot of vacations with me, and it just has really basic, easy to wear neutral shades. And then this one is the Mini Glam palette. This is brand new. It just came out recently, and it's kind of a cooler tone version of the nude one. So I've been enjoying this so much. You can make so many different looks with it. I really, really love it a lot. And then this is the Mini Gold palette. So it's a little bit different than the larger gold one just because these greens aren't as turquoise as they are in the gold palette. So it's something a little bit different. And this shade right here, oh my gosh, it's so beautiful on the lid. So I definitely recommend checking these out if you want to try her formula, but you don't want to spend an arm and a leg on the larger palettes. I think these are really good. Alright guys, so this is the last drawer. I have some Dalton palettes and also Glam Light. So Dalton, I have 4 different palettes. I have the Pro Eyeshadow palette and then the Pro 3. So these are actually a really interesting and kind of unique formula. I believe they start as like a cream and then they're baked. So they feel super velvety, they're so easy to pick up, and they blend like a dream on the eyes. My only real complaint about them is that if you like an intense shimmer shade, you're not really going to get that. There are a few shades in here that have shimmer like this one, but it's super, super subtle. So if you're somebody who doesn't like metallic shimmer on your eyelids, I think you would really like these. But overall, the effect of these is pretty matte for the most part. And then we have the Pro Palette 3. This one is a little bit more cool toned overall. You have really pretty dusty purples and pinks in here, plus the blues. And then this one is a newer palette from them. You actually have some cheek products in here as well as 9 eyeshadows. And these are just really pretty rosy tones and kind of more cool tones again, which I really like. I think Dalton does a really great job at choosing shades that are just like super easy to wear. Like anybody can wear these and they just blend so effortlessly. Again, like if you have drier skin or more mature skin, I think these shadows are really beautiful. And then last but not least, we have the Master palette. I would say out of all the Dalton palettes, this one's probably my least favorite just because it's almost like too muted and everything is kind of the same depth. Like there's not, I mean, yes, you do have lighter shades and then you have some mid-tones, but there's nothing really deep in here except for this kind of almost like black. It's like a dark, dark gray. So I don't know. I find that when I try to make looks with this, it's hard to get like a depth of color. Usually it's just very sheer washes. But you know, that's just personal preference. If you like something that's a little bit more sheer, then you might really enjoy this palette. It does have that same creamy, really easy to blend formula. All right, so last but not least, let's move on to Glam Light. So this is the Masterpiece palette. This is the first one that I ever purchased from them, and it's probably the most neutral one that they've done because then they really got into using color, which is not a bad thing. Then we have the Royalty palette. This one was not a favorite of mine, if I remember correctly. It kind of had its issues with the formula. There were these shades that were kind of like a cream, but they didn't pick up very well, and they kind of dried out over time. This one is completely dried out. Like I can't even pick that up at all. It also had a pressed glitter, which I'm not a fan of. I think I'm actually going to declutter this one because I don't ever use it. Next up we have the Caliente palette. So this one is much brighter and actually reminds me a lot of the Violet Voss Flamingo palette that I showed earlier in the video. It's very, very similar in tone. I think I actually compared these at some point somewhere, either on Instagram or here on YouTube, I can't remember. But I found no issues with the formula on this one. It is super, super rich and pigmented. So that's a nice one if you like color. Then we have the Alondra Desi palette. This one I also really liked. She's a YouTuber, so this was a collab that they did with her. And I did like the shades in here. It's kind of, in a way, reminds me of the Huda Beauty Rose Gold palette. There's a lot of very similar shades in here. Next is the Miracle palette, and this one was for breast cancer. So I know they donated a lot of the proceeds to breast cancer research, and I like this one too. Even though it has some pinks in it, they're more like purpley pinks, so I was okay with using those versus the more reddish pinks that can make me look sick. And I really loved the formula on this one. I thought it was beautiful. I thought these colors were so shiny and they looked amazing on the eyes. So this is another favorite of mine from Glamlight. And then I have some of their food themed palettes. I actually kept them in the boxes. I don't know why, because they're so much harder to store this way, but I guess I just thought they were so cute. So this one was the Viva Taco palette, and it's shaped like a taco, and then inside you have all of these really bright colorful shades. And again, the formula is really good. I just love the creaminess of these colors, and they're just so rich and buttery. It's not really one that I reach for all that often because I'm not super into wearing bright colors, but I did still want to keep it around just for comparisons. And then we have the Burger palette. This one came like in a box, and then it also had the bag that looks like takeout, so it was really cute. And the Burger palette itself was really squishy, shaped like a hamburger. And then these are the colors inside, and again, very similar to the Taco palette. It just has some brighter shades in here that I don't really wear all that often, but I'm still gonna hang on to it, like I said, because it's fairly new, and in case I need to compare it to anything down the road. And then we have the Pizza palette. It comes in a huge pizza box just like this. So the actual palette itself is a lot smaller than this giant box that it comes in. Let me just move this. But this one I actually did like. It does have a few bright pops of color, but it also has some more neutral or like wearable shades, at least for me, somebody who likes neutrals. And, you know, I loved these greens that were in it and some of these rosier shades like mushrooms. I loved the purple red onions. This bacon shade is really pretty as well. So, you know, a lot of people were not a fan of these food themed palettes and just thought they were kind of gross, but I didn't mind them. I actually thought it was cool that they were doing their own thing. So anyway, guys, that is all of my high-end eyeshadow palettes. I have no idea how many this makes, but I'll leave a count of them in the description box of this video. Part 1 had 120 palettes. This video probably has about the same. But anyway, and you missed part 1 or you want to see my other makeup collection videos, I will link a playlist right here and you can check out all of those videos. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please don't forget to hit that subscribe button right here in the corner, and I will see you in my next video. Bye, guys.